Today I have Nitecore's newest pocket rocket, the TM9K TAC, part of the Tiny Monster series of lights. It has 9 Cree XP-L2 LEDs that produce up to 9800 lumens in its instant turbo mode. It's got USB-C charging, an internal 21700 battery, and thanks to Nitecore for sending this to me to look at and review. I know I say this every time, but in the description I've got all my social links to various pages, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and even TikTok now. So make sure you check those out if you're not already following. And YouTube says most of you guys that watch these videos are not liking or subscribing. So if you enjoy this, make sure you do that too. Quick look at the packaging here. It's a nice black box. I'd even call it kind of elegant with the light printed here on the front here and just a few stats. I'll roll in pictures that really show this better. The light does include that 5000 milliamp hour 21700 battery, but it's not user replaceable. It is sealed in the light. So let's take a look at some of the other accessories. I'll start with the lanyard since I've got that attached to the light here. Got it attached to the thread point here. Your other accessories include a USB A to C cable here for charging. It's a nice stiff cable, non-branded. You get a tool to help you put the lanyard on. You get this pocket clip, which I'll talk about more in a minute. And you get a holster here, which I feel like this holster is probably made for another purpose, for another light maybe. The light fits, but it's a tight fit. I've got it wedged in there now, and it just barely fits here. I feel like this is probably made for something else, and it's not quite up to the quality level that I'd expect and that the rest of the light is here. So I'll probably skip the holster. So let's talk about the construction and design here. The light is made from aluminum. It's hard anodized in black. Machining here is good quality with no sharp edges, and all the fit and finishes are nice. Any blemishes you see on here are the result of me testing and using the light over the past few weeks. With all the fins and angles on this thing, it doesn't want to roll around. It's pretty stable even on a slight incline, so that's a good thing. The tail switch here is what we've seen on some of the other Nitecore lights. You've got your big mechanical button here that stands proud underneath a rubber boot. This is your on and off mode for the light. Then you've got this paddle here, which is your mode button, and this is used to cycle through the different modes, go to turbo, strobe, all those other things here. Knurling is pretty minimal here. It's more almost for style than grip as it's so shallow. Like I said, you do get this tactical ring. It is fixed in place and part of the tailpiece here, or the tactical ring is part of the tail cap, and this is one piece. That's why you don't get any O-rings here. You can see this is where it did come off at one point. You can see the crack right in there. So as I mentioned before here, the battery tube is one piece with the head. Your clip attachment points are here and here. I'll touch on that in a minute. You've got a few flats on there. The head itself has quite a few fins on here for heat dissipation, as this thing does get pretty dang hot at 9800 lumens and something that's easily fits into your hand. Behind the rubber door, you do have your USB-C port. This fits well, and something that's kind of neat in here that I haven't noticed on a lot of other lights is your USB-C, you've got a little slot here for the circuit board, so it takes a little bit of extra time to fit sometimes, but it does fit in there really nice and provides some extra watertight protection. Markings are kind of standard here, maybe a little much for my liking, but pretty standard. You've got a serial number marking. The front bezel here is made of stainless steel and kind of finished in this matte, smoky texture. It looks like it unscrews, but I couldn't get it to budge, but I didn't try real hard. Underneath that, you've got your glass lens. It's anti-reflective coated, and those 9 LEDs in that little custom reflector. Warranty here is typical of other higher-end Nitecore products. You've got a 15-day DOA and exchange policy with your retailer, and then a 5-year warranty with Nitecore for manufacturing defects. I assume that doesn't cover wear and tear of the battery, which would be normal. Size and weight wise here, I measured the light out of the box at 219 grams, length at 127 millimeters long, minimum diameter at 24.3 millimeters, maximum diameter at 42.2 millimeters. The light is IPX8 water rated and drop resistant to 1 meter. And here are a few photos with similar lights so you can kind of see the size comparison. Retention. As I mentioned, the light's got 2 retention modes that it ships with. First is this pocket clip here. I think this is made for a different light. It fits on here okay, not great. There's some gapping here and there's that shelf, which I don't care for myself, but it does fit. It allows for you to relatively deeply carry the light, as you can see here, if you want to. But with this head size, that's just not something I'm personally interested in, but it's possible. You can reverse the clip as well if you want. It doesn't really work like that, but you can. You can carry it like this too. Again, not the best in my opinion. Doesn't really fit on there well, so it's really only at top lug. Your second option is lanyard here, and typically I'm not a lanyard person, but I felt with just this size of light and how it's used, a lanyard's something I wanted to do, so I put it on. This threading tool came in super helpful to put the relatively large cord through the smaller hole. So let's talk about the LEDs and beam here. The TM9K TAC features 9 Cree XP-L2 emitters inside. There's no official tint data given here, but it's more of a neutral white than I expected. Typically Nitecore uses pretty cool LEDs. Other reviewers have reported this in the neighborhood of around 5600 Kelvin, so I'll take their word for that since I don't have the equipment currently to measure that, although that's something I'm looking at ordering here soon. It should be no surprise that this is a very floody light. It has no real defined hotspot, and when bounced off a ceiling or wall in turbo, it's almost like you've got a diffuser inside here. And let me just turn on turbo here. I've got my video lights, obviously, which is quite a bit of light. I think it's 5 or 6 bulbs on each side, about 60 or 75 watts, so it's quite a bit of wattage here, but you can tell when this thing is on how much more light that's throwing on my table. So official outputs here before we do the night shots. Turbo 9800 lumens, high at 2000, medium at 500 lumens, low at 130 lumens, and ultra low is really not very ultra low at 30 lumens. Maximum throw is rated at 280 meters, and we'll see that in my night shots. Here are my night shots for the Nitecore TM9K TAC. This is ultra low, 30 lumens. That is as low as this one goes, so not super low at all. Bumping up here is low, 130 lumens. Bumping up again, we have medium, 500 lumens out of those Cree XP-L2 emitters, 9 of them. Bumping up here is high, 2000 lumens, and at this point the light can sustain itself fairly well for about 7-8 minutes, something like that, as you saw in my runtime section here. Quite a bit of light for a decent amount of time, given the small form factor here. And here is turbo, 9800 lumens and dropping quickly. Blows out the camera, and you can see there it just stepped down. And if I keep holding here, this will run for about 2 minutes and 30 seconds or thereabouts, continuing to drop, as you'll see in my graphs in the next section here. And it gets quite warm to the touch doing this. It's uncomfortable after 2 minutes and 30 seconds here. So this is definitely a pocket rocket and a tiny monster, as said. And here is strobe full 9800 lumens. So I brought out the Firefly EO7 here to compare. It's got a couple fewer LEDs. It's run different LEDs, niches, I believe. If I remember right, I don't remember what the peak output here is, but you can see it's also a very floody light, multi-emitter there, throws decently well. And here is that Nitecore. You can see it's just so much floodier, super bright, throws the 250 meter mark according to Nitecore, but steps down so quickly. But even still then, it's pretty dang bright after step down. An impressive light, just not for very long. So the big story for me here is heat and runtime and how long turbo lasts. While this light is rated at 9800 lumens, it only produces that in instant turbo, and it does so for about 5 to 7 seconds before starting to step down. So not FL1 standards here to get that 9800 lumens. This is due to heat, as it gets warm very, very quickly here. I can just hold this here in my hand and have it on turbo. I'm talking about this, and I'm already feeling that heat, and like I said, there's the lights already stepped down here, so it's pretty quick. I did click and hold that thing for 2 minutes and 30 seconds before the light shuts off, and in that momentary mode turbo, and the exterior of the light got to 114 degrees with an infrared thermometer, so pretty damn hot. I also ran the runtime in the highest mode the light will stay in, which is about 6 minutes before stepping down massively to about 25% relative output, where it runs for 2 hours and 45 minutes. The remaining runtime is pretty linear out to 4 hours, and from there the light runs on its lowest output mode of just a few lumens for a really, really long time, about 24 hours here. That's below 1% relative output and not graph. Max heat during this high runtime was 45°C at the 7-minute mark. So the UI here is very simple. The large round mechanical button turns the light on. It does have memory to remember what mode you were in. So that was high. So here we are back at low. And then I just hit that mode button to cycle through the different modes. When the light is off, you can double press to go to strobe. You can single press and hold to go to turbo, as I was talking before. There is lockout mode here that I won't go into detail, but it's probably a good idea to use this when transporting the light. So make sure you check out your manual for that. So recharging here is interesting. As mentioned before, the light ships with an internally sealed 21700 battery that's not user replaceable. Recharging is accomplished via USB-C here on the side. When recharging, you've got a blue LED on the tail cap here that will blink and then go solid when charged. As I mentioned, the USB-C cover here fits nicely and stays out of the way. The light can almost stay on its side here pretty well on the port, which not all lights do. This will charge via USB-C to C or USB-C PD. Nitecore says it will charge in under 5 hours with USB-C PD, and in my experience that came in at 4 hours and 16 minutes. You can charge it even faster using a quick charge compatible charger in right around 3 hours, Nitecore says. I didn't get this to work quite how they said. I only tried one of my QC chargers here, and I'm not sure quite what's up. The battery wasn't 100% drained, so that might be the case. So I'll have to play with that a little bit more and maybe ask Nitecore what's going on here and try a different charger and cable setup here too. So my final thoughts on the Nitecore TM9K TAC are that it's a ton of output for a really fairly small light, but the drawbacks for me on this one make it hard to recommend without serious reservations. The main two being the very short duration of turbo output and the built-in non-replaceable battery. Other than those, this is a pretty good pocket rocket of a light. When not in turbo, the runtimes and temps are reasonable for this size, and the build quality and machining here are what I'd expect in this price range from Nitecore. I was pleasantly surprised of the LED tint being relatively neutral, and it's a nice change from Nitecore, but they are lower CRI. UI here is easy enough to use and follow too. I like that this works well with USB-C, but I would have liked them to go with USB-C PD for that faster charging rather than the QC standard, because it's now the universal. I feel like quick charge is a standard of the past. Ultimately, this one is geared for a more mainstream, non-flashaholic audience, I feel like. And for that segment of the market, I think this would hit most people's needs, and they'd be happy with it and amazed at how much light it puts out in turbo, however short that may be. So let me know what you think of this one in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And while you're there, I'd appreciate a like and subscribe so you can catch me on the next review. Thanks for watching.